just as by and large, we'll get in this later. This is like March Madness. I mean, I don't even know how I feel right now. There's so much important baseball stacked one on top of each other. It's as good as it's been at any time going into a playoff.
Yeah, you're right. It really is, and I think it's a huge deal that all three of the wild card games are played. At the home team site. Crowds play a big factor. But I did mention before, with a lot of guys, they don't really care about the crowd noise, and it can fuel a visiting player just as much as a home player. But I do think that you would have to lean on the side of the advantage being with the home team. I mean, obviously, but I don't think it doesn't play as big of a part as you would think. There is an advantage there, but it's not astronomical by any means.
Yeah, like the players aren't going to be nervous, so to say, or like, oh man, it's really loud out there. Like, it's just fucking loud. Like,
yeah, I mean, it gets your fucking juices going. And we talked about how wild the Rogers Center is going to be, and it could be the loudest of any stadium.
Yeah, so we have some really cool storylines, high level from here, and you bring up the Blue Jays. So let's start here with the Blue Jays Rays. What I'd like to do is just kind of give some paint pictures here of kind of what these four series look like and some of the bigger storylines, and then we'll spend some time on each team, and then we'll bring in the boys and kind of maybe pick some series and talk a little bit more about the fan psychology aspect of it. But just starting off, you bring up the Blue Jays, and to me this is great because Mariners are coming in here, first appearance in 20 years. Against Blue Jays, Canada's national baseball team. The crowd's insane. The Maple Leafs always suck. Like, these people are just crave postseason success. They never get it. And some of the best young players are going to be playing in the series in the playoffs. You've got J-Rod, you've got Gilbert, Kirby, Vlad, Bo, Manoah. Just a stable of studs under 25 years old. And then you mix in like an Alejandro Kirk, who's a phenomenal catcher for the Blue Jays. A lot of these young guys who could have big October moments. Blue Jays versus Mariners. This one's not heavily, but slight favor to the Blue Jays. We're going to kind of get into series picks and predictions later. But for now, I'm just kind of like, what jumps out to you about this matchup?
Well, I love the Blue Jays offense. I really do. A lot of firepower in there. I love Springer. A ton of postseason experience. Young superstars, but then and I like the Blue Jays pitching. I do. I think the Gausman blister is a slight concern for me. I don't know the status and how severe that is. I know he had issues his last start, and they're probably just being conservative. They want to make sure he has enough time to get that right and be ready to go. I love Manoah game one. But I do think that Seattle's pitching can neutralize that offense, especially Luis Castillo, and what he's going to be showcasing. He's going to be throwing 101 miles per hour, I'm sure, to start that game. He's got extremely nasty shit, but I do agree with you. I think the Blue Jays have the slight edge in this series. I think it goes three, though.
Yeah. I'm going to pivot here. Why don't we just spend the time now on the teams? I'll introduce the series. We'll give high-level stuff because I don't want to get into, like, Guardians-Rays now. This is how I thought I was going to do it. But now I don't want to pivot into, like, Guardians-Rays high-level. I'm ready to talk deep Blue Jays-Mariners here for a minute if you want. Because,
sure.
I'm curious who's going to catch Kevin Gausman. Because Kirk has been catching Manoah. It seems like that's the matchup. And then they've got Danny Jansen, who's coming in and going, DH catcher. They've kind of been splitting that up. This isn't like a major storyline anyone's talking about. They do have like a for sure 1-to-1 for game one, Manoah and Kirk behind the plate. But I don't know what the battery looks like for games 2 and game 3. And I think that's going to be more important than people are talking about.
Well, who do they like more behind the dish?
I think Jansen's. I think Jansen to me is a better catcher.
I would say that. I mean, I don't necessarily know the relationship with Gausman and Jansen. Maybe he's a better guy back there because of Gausman's split and being able to kind of controlling guys taking second base, taking third base on balls in the dirt, a little bit quicker on his feet. I mean, that's going to play a huge part in the postseason. I mean, if you can get an extra 90 feet, on a ball in the dirt, here and there, that could easily lead to runs. Instead of a guy having to hit a double, to bring a guy in, guy gets a second base on a ball in the dirt. That's a huge deal. It's magnified by a lot at this time of year. And then, it's not the same. It's not the same turf they used to have, but the ball's gonna skip a lot more. The potential for swinging third strikes, guys that end up on first base. So yeah, I mean that makes sense, and you're right. I think Jansen is definitely a little bit better of a defender than Kirk. Not to say Kirk's not a good catcher, but I think he gets the edge there. But
I think I can say with a lot of confidence that Kirk will be catching Game 1 because of the relationship with Manoah. He's been catching Manoah's. I would be surprised if they got to Game 1 of the Wildcard series, even though Kirk's caught Manoah. I don't want to say he's caught every start. I just went back and looked for like the last 8 starts or whatever, and Kirk's been with Manoah every single one. So I would be surprised if I was Manoah. I'd be like, yo, come on, guys. And again, this is a guy who doesn't use pitch comm. This is one of those old school guys. I just feel like he would tell anybody like if the front office came down and they were like, hey, we looked at the numbers and we're want Danny to catch Manoah. Like, that would be grounds for Manoah to take a bat to a water cooler. Like, I'm telling you who I'm pitching to. If you're going to get into the ball in Game 1, I'm telling you who's catching.
Yeah, I mean, everybody would be shocked if Kirk wasn't there behind the plate with Manoah Game 1. Yeah, I mean, that's going to happen. It'd be ridiculous to switch it up. That won't happen.
From a lineup standpoint, George Springer's just completely slept on. He's got 19 home runs in his career in the postseason, over 63 games, and a near 900 OPS. A lot of that damage, I just think all the damage is done with the Astros. Obviously, he's great, and people know him as a extremely talented, toolsy center fielder. I don't know if he has a reputation for a bad boy in October, but he certainly deserves one. And you talk about the lineup, I think Bo Bichette comes to mind and Vlad Guerrero, but there's just a reason why I don't know why George Springer hasn't latched on to me. Is like, when I think of the Blue Jays lineup, the first guy I think of should be George Springer at this time of the year based on what he's done.
Yeah, this time of year, for sure. Well, I think I don't know if he's overshadowed, but there's some young stars in that lineup that probably get mentioned first. And Springer he's second all time in leadoff homers. Is that correct?
I believe so.
Yeah. So, a guy that definitely shouldn't be overlooked. But there's a lot of thump in there. Obviously, like the first name that probably comes up is Vlad Jr. For good reason. I feel like he's ready to have a big postseason. And, playing.
Would you care that he's been their worst hitter since September 1st? Would you him and Biggio have been their 2 worst hitters since September 1st? I don't mean they've been.
Yeah, it's probably a little
when
concerning.
You stack them. Okay.
Yeah, I mean that's probably a little concerning, but then you could kind of say the same thing for Bryce in Philly. Like he's been pretty bad in September. I think things change though in October. I definitely think things change. What's done is done. These guys are winners. They're gonna be ready to go. And it wouldn't concern me much. I'm sure it does with some of the fans in Toronto, rightfully so. I mean, you can only go off what they've done for you lately. But hey, it's
whatever.
Slate is wiped clean.